Hello everybody, welcome to this mini webinar. Today's topic is online testing skills. My name is Dan. In today's webinar here, we'll go through when students take the test, different things to think about when students are taking these online AIR, EOC, standardized tests. Then we'll go into knowing the Chromebook a little bit, some common things you may run into, some common troubles, troubleshooting things that you may run into, and then we'll go into some student testing skills and how you can prepare students to have the skills they need to take the test. And then finally we'll go into some resources, particularly things that will help prepare students for the content of the standardized tests. So, first thing is how students could struggle with online tests. So, an online test is not necessarily easier than paper or pencil tests. It's still the same content. There's no standard grade level or gauge of tech skills, though. Different school districts may have different standards or like I can statements or things like that, but that is very different between different school districts. So, you may or may not be a part of a school district that has technology skills more fleshed out for students at different age groups. So every student's going to have a different amount of experience with technology. And of course, this is just like when you have your paper test, there's still, of course, that test anxiety and stress. And so you'll still have those accidental mistakes and your mental blocks. And then going on to our things about the online tests specifically, sometimes computers fail. And when we have Chromebooks, this is one of the nice things about Chromebooks is they are much simpler and less things can go wrong with a Chromebook typically than we have in a regular PC. And of course, students, when they're going to react to a computer failing on them, they may freak out, they may have a lot of stress, they may start to think about how am I going to make this up, I was in the middle of something, I was going to affect my graduation, etc., etc. And of course, we want to minimize that as much as possible. As teachers, there's only so much you can do. A lot of that kind of falls on the background work that your technology directors and coordinators are doing to get these computers all set up and ready for the online tests. And then, of course, back to the student side of things, a lack of experience with the test structure would be a very common thing that can have students kind of have a lot of struggle with. So we just want to get students more comfortable and prepared for the things that they're going to see when they go and take these tests. All right, and of course that goes back into your comfort level. So a few misconceptions about student technology aptitude here. Students adapt to different kinds of technology. Of course, when we say that, when we think of students and technology, we'll obviously think of all the recreational types of technology that they use. And it's, as educators, it's our job to bring in not only the important content that we're trying to teach them, but also how to use technology safely and effectively and responsibly. And that's kind of where educational technology comes in. And students will have access to the same resources. That's kind of one of the big goals here, is to have get students all onto the same level as much as possible. So when they go in, particularly to go and do these tests, that they're adequately prepared. Students understand the technology inside and out, basically. It's all just about getting them onto that comfort level, kind of like I mentioned. All students like and use technology on a daily basis, and having them go and do these tests on a computer might actually bring a little bit of comfort to them. It's kind of that idea of playing video games too. There's positive emotions that kind of come with doing things on these devices. Same idea with cell phones. All right, so that was just a quick little introduction about kind of some of the common things, misconceptions, or things that we should kind of go over real quick. But now into some of the more important stuff here. Chromebook shortcuts in troubleshooting. So in most school districts that do an online version of the AIR EOC tests, they're going to do them on Chromebooks. And of course, Chromebooks are your essentially a Chrome browser on the computer, and just like any other computer, it may run into some funky issues that you didn't expect to happen, or you may have one student that has a different screen than another, or what have you. Here on this slide, on slide number 5, you'll have some common keyboard problems, common Chromebook problems, and how to fix them. So there's a link here for you guys. And again, if I didn't, I think I forgot to mention it, but at the beginning, the very first slide here, let me jump back. This bit.ly up here, bit.ly/test skills 34 will get you this slideshow. So put that into your address bar, bit.ly/test skills 34. That'll get you this slideshow. It's opened up to everybody, so anybody can come in and get these links and resources here. Anyway, so common Chrome OS problems or things you might run into on a Chromebook. This page, without going too deep into it, because again the link is here for you to explore at your leisure here. But there's a lot of good information here about some like common issues that you might run into if the Chromebook keeps shutting itself down or it's restarting on its own. If you're getting error messages after you try to boot up, you're trying to download something important but it won't work. You can't even get to sign in. The browser tabs are just repeatedly reloading. Chrome OS just keeps crashing. It's not loading web pages, it's just getting error messages, all these sorts of things. This is a page you can just kind of refer back to whenever you need. Again, the link here is on slide number 5 on our slideshow. And so there's a ton more to just to kind of be aware of. You don't have to be a Chromebook expert. And that kind of brings us into our next topic here, which is kiosk mode. So when we have our Chromebooks set up for testing, they go into what's called kiosk mode, where it doesn't allow the user to go off to a new tab or really open up any other apps or the browser or anything else. It's just one screen that's kind of locked into the error or EOC tests. They won't be able to log out of that and go into anything else. So it's something that's going to be set up for you guys beforehand. So as the teachers are proctoring the tests, everybody's screen should look kind of something like this picture over here. All right. So that's essentially what you need to know for a Chromebook. Again, this is just kind of a condensed quick webinar here for you guys, so it's going to be a pretty short video. So that'll bring us over into our testing skills here. So here on slide number 8, we have Info Ohio's tech skills for online testing. The link is here for you, so we'll go ahead and give this a click here. And there's a ton of great resources just on Info Ohio in general, but of course on this page specifically, we have a lot of good information for tech skills for online testing, and they give us a bunch of different examples and a bunch of resources in here. So we have things from using a calculator to a ruler to number lines to highlighting things, selecting things, scrolling within a scroll, all these other kind of different skills that students are going to need to know while taking the tests online. So just different things they have to be used to that they wouldn't have to worry about if they were doing a paper pencil test. And just going into one example here, if we go into the scroll within a scroll here, we have a couple of links and a couple of examples of where to find just a few examples of finding things that have like a scroll within a scroll, and just depending on what it is, it'll take you to a different page here. That one's probably not a great example here. Let's see if we have something in this one. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, both of these kind of go in here. And so what we're talking about when we have a scroll within a scroll is when we have essentially kind of like two web pages in one, and students have to know the difference about which scroll bar on the far right side to use. And that one's, again, a lot of these tech skills are things that aren't terribly difficult or high level, so it's going to apply more to your younger kids, but some things you may just want to review real quick for your older students, just so they are familiar with the types of questions or the kind of actions they're going to be asked to do. And some things are like a little bit more specific about like where to find the calculator on the actual tests, and then how to actually use the calculator. And if we go into like the Desmos calculator here, we'll see we'll have their example in here. And well, the whole point of this is we want our students to be comfortable with these tools, so they can still use these the tools that they're given in the tests to be able to use them without any big issue because we don't want to get them stuck up on trying to figure out how to use the calculator to answer the math problem, because that's not the point. The point is for them to answer the math problem, right? The point is not to get stuck on trying to figure out just how to type in, a linear equation into this calculator. That shouldn't be the point. All right. So things like this are good resources to kind of go through with your students, depending on what tech skills your students have already. So again, this web page here. Let me back up a page, has a ton of these different skills with resources for each one, and essentially you get a little preview of the tool that you may use during the actual test and the tech skill that's kind of associated with using that. All right, so let's jump back again. Again, that link there is on slide number 8 for you. And here's just a few more skills that are required for online test taking. Each of these here on slide number 9 are linked for you as well. So things like, again, most of these are more useful to go through, I think, for your younger kids. Probably kids at the older grade levels are more comfortable with the basic tech skills, but when you have a first, second, third grader doing an online test, we want to make sure they know how to select an object properly, they know how to use the highlighter, they know how to do drag and drop, or all those different kind of things. Okay, so all of these things here on slide number 9 are linked here for you, so you can refer back to them if you need. All right, and that brings us over into our resources. So again, in this section, we're kind of going over some of the best resource websites and tools that are out there that'll help us get the content across to our students and help them really get ready for the test. And the first one here is the practice test site from ODE. Oh, that link is wrong. We'll swing back around to that one. Is this the right link? Let's see. There we go. This is the right link. So this website here will take us into the practice test site for students, and these are all just the released practice tests for all the different grade levels and all the different subjects. And so students can log in here. I'll show that process again real quick. So if you click on link number 3 on slide 11, it'll take us over to this page. And then we click on students and families, and then student practice site. And then we just log in. This is just a guest user. It doesn't save anything, so we can just log in as a guest. And then we'll select a grade. So if we have maybe 6th graders, we can look through all the different released items that we've had over the past few years, and so we can just go into any subject. So if I want to go in here and go into the most recent is the 2017 Social Studies 6th grade EOCs here. And we have all these different tools, so we'll have things like the highlighter and the test clock and the masking, and we have these little question marks over the side. So like in this case, masking allows students to cover a distracting area of the test page, allows opening up strike through, which crosses out answer options for themselves to help them mentally check off the ones that they know aren't right. And then we have all these other different tools on here that you can just turn on or off, and each student can go through these ones and pick the options that they want. And we'll say select down here. We can choose our text-to-speech check here. For our purposes, I'll just skip it, but if you want to have this text-to-speech here for your students, you can do it, and as the students are reading through the questions and the options, they'll have a text-to-speech option that comes in there, so it'll just read aloud everything for you. For our purposes, I'm just going to hit skip, and that'll say continue, and then this just gives us an overview, and then we're ready to go. So then once we dive in here, then we're going to be in this practice exam here, and this is pretty much exactly what the actual test is going to look like. The layout is almost exactly the same. Along the top here, we have our buttons to go back and forth between our questions. We can save our progress. We can pause the time. This is where we can turn on our masking, so we can hide our different sections. We can have little notes for ourselves. that aren't graded. We can have a line reader to kind of help us break down the reading, and of course we can zoom in and out, all that fun stuff. And then we can also have a few more options here, like our strike through and our speaking options. All right, and then from here, it's just answering your questions. So our first question, which is a way humans have modified the environment to adapt to the arid climate of the Middle East? I would probably guess irrigation. And then we kind of keep on going. And of course, students are able to fly through in any order that they wish. And as they go through the test, we'll see along the top here how much of a percentage they have done. And you can also see which questions they have completed, which ones they have not completed. So the little red triangles are the ones they haven't done, and we know which question that we're currently sitting on, and you can see how many. So there's only one more question to go. All right, and then of course once our students are done, they can finish out the last question here, and then once they're finished, another button will come up along the top here once all the questions are answered or the time runs out, and we'll have a finish button up here, and then it'll just run us through the end of the test. All right, now if you want to save all of our student responses, there's a couple of different things that you can do. One, you can break apart your students into like small groups of 2 or 3 kids, and then they just kind of work on these practice assignments together, and they kind of look through some of the common questions, or they're able to see the different types of questions that they're going to be asked, along with like kind of the different tools. That's one way you can do it. Another way is if you want to do kind of more keep track of what your students are answering. So if you're actually going for accuracy here, you can also do that by using screenshots or maybe like a paper tracker or assignment that kind of accompanies this. That's just a couple ideas. The more useful thing about this practice site here is to get students more comfortable with how the test is going to look and how the tools look. It's not necessarily as much about the actual content in here, because of course with these standardized tests, it really covers a wide range of topics that you talk about throughout the year. So you still just want to focus on getting your students comfortable with how the test looks and the tools that you're going to use in the test, and then also all the content that you have to go through. All right, and so that kind of brings us over to our next point here. There's more and more resources here for you guys on slide number 11. Of course, for our purposes, I'm not going to go through each one here, but we have lots of lesson ideas as well. So if you create things like an internet scavenger hunt, I think this link is active here, and there's a ton of different things that you can do to have your students kind of get ready for these tests, and that kind of ease the anxiety about it a little bit, and just get them comfortable with those 2 parts. They need to be comfortable with the online tools and how the test is going to look, and the other part is the content. All right, so those are the main 2 things that we just need to get students comfortable with, and so it really just comes down to getting them ready for the test in those 2 parts. Excuse me, specifically for math, here on slide number 12, there is, on slide number 12 here, there is a few links here for you guys for probably the most useful graphing calculator, online graphing calculator out there called Desmos. There's the link for you. I kind of went into it real quick a little bit earlier, but there's a ton in Desmos to look at, especially if you're a math teacher, and we have a very similar looking calculator on the online tests that students will use. So we want to make sure they're comfortable with using an online graphing calculator or just a regular calculator in case they're not provided with a physical type calculator. All right, so other ways to get our students ready. Especially for younger kids, again, that little bit of keyboarding practice wherever you can. If they don't have a dedicated technology class, a little bit of keyboarding practice can go a long way, because even with the younger grades, they'll probably still have some questions where they're required to type out their responses, and that could be, if they're doing really well, but if they're just a slower test taker, or if they're just a slow typer, that can really kind of mess up their times. Difference between iPads and laptops. So we're talking about getting students comfortable with if you're in like a one-to-one iPad classroom, or if you use tablets more often, getting them a little bit more comfortable with using a laptop, because they're not going to be using iPads for the exams. Use as many different devices as you can to get students comfortable, kind of like along the same ideas as I just said here. And comfort takes time and practice. And technology vocabulary and digital citizenship and all that fun stuff is very important, of course. And of course, getting students prepared to be taking that test for as long as it takes. Some of these are several hour-long tests with maybe just one break in the middle somewhere. So we would want to make sure students are able to get in there for that long. And also another kind of easier thing that you can do in terms of integration is you can start moving some of your assignments into the digital space here. It works especially nice, of course, if you have like a Chromebook cart in your classroom, or if you have iPads for your students or something like that. You can start moving some of your assignments to like Google Forms or Edulastic or things like that. You can start moving them into the digital space so students are a little bit more used to doing their regular work online or on the computer instead of paper pencil. And troubleshooting confidence. Students will figure out what's fixable and what needs assistance. And this is kind of the stuff that if you're proctoring, is just a good thing to keep an eye out for. Of course, I'm sure you've been told a million times, keep pacing around the room, see what students are looking at. Make sure if a student is, some students, depending on what they're like, their screen might go black out of nowhere, and they'll just sit there and not raise their hand. So kind of keep your eye on everybody. A few other ways to get students ready. So embed some online testing strategies as authentically as possible as you can throughout the year. Again, just moving to some more digital assignments just to get students a little bit more used to them. Embed some computer-based practice into your regular instruction. All this kind of same stuff here. All right. Now into the really good stuff here, and we're coming towards the end here. But some other great sites for online assessments here, and these things are particularly good for getting students used to doing some work on the computer, and for getting content across to them in a different way other than just paper pencil here. And our first one here is EdSite. This one I'll actually go into as well here, and that is on slide number 15. And this is one of those websites that lets you log in with Google, just like a ton of others. And so I'll go ahead and log in here. So I already made my account a little bit ago. Essentially what EdSite is, it's a platform that allows you to create assignments in classrooms. And the really great thing about EdSite, it has a pretty good sized library of pre-made assignments that other teachers out there have made. So if I come up to the assignments tab up here, I can just start searching for whatever I'd like, or I can use the filters over here. And if I just want to start kind of filtering down maybe, and I'll say maybe I want to look for something from English, and I can see how many questions, like how long of a question I want. You can see there's over 9,000 ones that are between 1 and 10 questions long. Or maybe I want something a little bit longer, so I want 11 to 20 questions. All right, and so here I have over 1,300 assignments in here that are filtered into ELA. And this is just a quick look at all the stuff that's in here. You can see how many views and likes these things have gotten. And we can just come through and take a look at all of this stuff in here. And if I just kind of find one I like, I'll just kind of arbitrarily pick this one. And we can kind of come in here and take a look at this assignment. And now the whole thing about EdSite too is it kind of mimics the style of your standardized tests. So again, it's another thing that kind of gets students used to interacting with the kind of the look of a standardized test that's online here. But the nice thing about it is it has a bunch of those pre-made assignments that are in here that you can just pull from. Or of course you can make your own if you'd like. All right, and so just in this example here, we have a little reading page on the side here, and then we have our actual activity here, which is click the sentence that best supports the inference that Coyote uses his imagination. And then as the students, we're just going to go and pick whatever sentence we'd like. We can even check our answer in here. Oh, hey, I got it right. That was a good guess. I didn't even read it. And then we can kind of keep on running here. And as you can see, it looks kind of similar to how the standardized tests are going to look online. It's very kind of plain as we kind of have in standardized tests. But let's say I run through this as the teacher here. I'm running through this and I say, okay, this assignment looks pretty good. It'll help my students kind of get ready for the test. This is something I want to use in class. So what I can do is I can come up here along the top here and come up to assign. And as long as I have some classes already built here in EdSite, I can go ahead and assign this activity to my students. The other nice thing about EdSite here is it's another one of those websites that lets you connect with your Google Classroom. So if you have a Google Classroom that already has your students in, you just import all your students right into EdSite here, and everybody comes in. And you don't have to do any adding or join codes or anything. Everybody will just kind of be in here for you. And all you have to do is provide them with a link or tell them to go to EdSite and log in with their school account, and they'll be in, they'll see your assignment, and they'll go ahead and do it. All right. Anyway, so if we kind of come through here and look at all these questions here, so here's all the questions that are in this assignment. So there's 17 questions. If everything looks good, I can change things if I want from here. This is now my version. I can change whatever I want, but I'll just say it's good for our purposes here. And if I like what I see, I can switch it over to active here. And then I'll come over and do this assign button over here on the side. I'll close out of this little warning. And I can choose which class I want it to go in. As we can see, we kind of see the little Google G over here on the side. This is my class that I have in Google Classroom. And what I can even do here is if I want to assign it to this class, I can set my start and due dates. I'll start it now, and maybe I'll set a due date for the end of the month. And I'll assign it to my Google Classroom as well. It even gives us a start code. If you want to share that, you can. But since in this case I'm going to post it to my Google Classroom anyway, it's already going to be posted in there. So I'll go ahead and assign it there. And watch what happens. It kicks me over to a new tab here. I'm going to go ahead and sign into EdSite to make sure it's allowed. I'm allowing it to go into my Google Classroom here, which is fine. Oh. Let me try that again. And let me flip this over again. So active and assign. Put it in my history class. Put it into the Google Classroom. And I'll say assign. I think EdSite has a bug running in there right now. So in the past, that's probably just a bug. Hopefully they fix that soon. But what would happen is you'd have a pop-up that says it would give you your traditional Google Classroom assignment button. It essentially gives you one of these. Hang on real quick. It would give you one of these buttons here, just like if you're familiar with Google Classroom. It'll give you a pop-up that looks pretty much just like this. The title would already be filled in for you. Then all you have to do is put in some instructions if you want, and then put all your point values in and say assign. There's just some error or bug that's giving us the inability to go right from EdSite into Google Classroom. But of course, we can still do it this way. All right. If you want to do it manually, all we have to do is, as long as our students are signed in or are part of one of our classes in EdSite, all we have to do is tell our students, hey, go into EdSite, just go to edsite.com and sign in their classrooms. They're going to see these assignments posted in there. Okay, all they have to do is go in and look at their assignments. It'll show up for them there. They complete the assignment, and it's all just housed completely in EdSite. Okay. Another one is Google Forms. So of course that one's a very popular poll maker, quiz maker, and so if you have some of your own questions and that you want to specifically ask your students, like things that these are your specific learning targets. These are the things that you need to hit. You're not worried about go into other websites to find some pre-made stuff. Google Forms is probably the best way to go if you're just making it yourself, because this is going to be the easiest thing to share with your students. It's the easiest thing to collect responses from your students. So that one's a really good one to go with. We already went through the Ohio Air Practice site. We can also go into Quizlet. For our purposes here today, to keep the video nice and short here, I'll kind of skip past it. Quizlet's another very popular website, really, really good for reviewing concepts, especially vocabulary. That's especially a really good thing for your EOC air tests, getting students used to seeing those vocabulary words pop out at them. All right, so Creative, again, another really good website for making your assignments digital. Edulastic is very similar to EdSite, has a big focus on getting students used to the look of a standardized test, and it has Edulastic also has another really big library of pre-made items on here, and you can find any subject area, any grade. There's a ton of stuff on there. Edpuzzle is a video quiz maker. That one allows you to take a video from any source, whether it's from your computer or from YouTube or pretty much anywhere else, and you can upload it onto Edpuzzle, and then you can insert questions throughout the video. And when a student goes in and watches the video, they'll watch the video, and up to a certain point that you designate, the video will pause and ask the student the question. The student responds to the question, hits submit, and then the video continues, and then that just repeats as many times as you have questions in the video. And that's especially good, again, for doing concept reviews. It really doesn't prepare them for the look of a standardized test, because you're really not going to have video questions in the standardized tests, but those are things that you can really hammer home some content. PlayPosit is essentially the same idea as Edpuzzle. It's just another website. The nice thing about PlayPosit, actually both of those things, Edpuzzle and PlayPosit, they both have pretty good sized libraries of pre-made assignments that are out there that any teacher can just pull from. You can search for whatever topic you're looking for, and you can find a ton of good video assignments for students to do. And Kahoot's another one that's been around for a long time. That one's another fun quiz activity. Very similar kind of to Quizlet. That one's been around for a long time, and people love that one because it's a very gamified quiz game. Wiser is another one that creates interactive worksheets. The problem with this with Wiser is, in order to get pretty much anything good, you have to pay. You have to do the paid version. So I'll mention it here. I won't go into it very much at all. But if it's something you're interested in, here's the link for you on slide number 15. Okay. All right, so that kind of brings us down to the end here. Here's our to-do list again from the beginning. We talked about some of the common things to know when students are taking the tests. We went into knowing the Chromebook, where to find a good little troubleshooting guide, kind of get familiar with your keyboard shortcuts as well, know what to expect to see when students are taking the tests. Then we went into a little bit of test-taking skills, especially the good stuff from Info Ohio. And then we went into our resources to really hammer home students getting comfortable with how the test looks, and particularly all the content that we have to get across to them. All right, and that pretty much brings us down to the end here. Of course, if you have any other questions, there's my email, dneeson@neonet.org. So if you watch this quick webinar, if you have any questions or any thoughts, feel free to fire away. Again, the link to this slideshow is here, bit.ly/testskills34. That'll get you this whole slideshow. It's open and available for everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Other than that, I'll see you next time.